Okay, so a couple weeks back, I made a video on hyperstimulation explaining what happens when your body is under chronic stress, what some of the symptoms are, and how all of that goes down. But I wanted to make a little more of an in-depth video on it because I noticed some relationships between exercise, and I was like, I feel like this needs to be, explored a little more. So, how does exercise relate to hyperstimulation and stress? You're about to find out. Okay, so the first thing I'm gonna do is explain hyperstimulation again. If you don't know what hyperstimulation is, it is when your body is under chronic amounts of stress. What is chronic? Well, in my case, because in the case study for this channel, in my case, chronic stress is stress that probably lasted, I would say, around 9 months of me not intervening, not really doing anything to take care of it. I would say from probably around May to December, November, October, somewhere in that range. And during that whole time, I had dealt with a lot of things. So in March, I had dealt with, I had a concussion in March. Also found out I had a cyst on my brain. It was benign. I'm okay. But it was a very stressful event. In May, I had to move out of my dorm, find a dorm, and then also find an apartment because I was graduating in August. Couldn't live on campus. Next semester, whole thingamajig there. And then just in general, the stress of graduating, finding a job, everything was just compounding on top of each other, and I didn't know how to deal with it, got overwhelmed, and became chronically stressed. So what were my symptoms of being chronically stressed? Well, leg tightness, inability to focus, blurry vision, feeling lightheaded or that like brain foggy, like you just feel surreal, detached from reality sometimes. I can name more: headaches, muscle tightness, muscle pain, and overall just horrible experience. And recently, I have done meditation, which I explained in the last video. And what meditation does is it rewires your brain to not be as sticky when these, thoughts come into your mind. So when you're chronically stressed, cortisol goes up, testosterone, all the helpful chemicals in your body go down, and you will start to, be more jolty. Your brain waves will move faster. And you're just very hyperactive. You react to everything quicker. You're, irritable. You're agitated. You're like, like every thought in your brain is just, attack. What does that mean? Oh my God. And I was doing a little research on this, and I was like, this is interesting. 2 years ago, over the summer, I went to Scotland. I'm gonna put a little picture up here. And when I was in Scotland, me and my friend were like, let's do a 50,000 step challenge, because throughout this whole experience, we had walked, forever. Experience. It was a study abroad program. We had walked at least 25,000 steps every day. And I was like, fuck it, we can do double that in one day, right? Like, that's easy. And so we went and did 50,000 steps. For those who don't know, 50,000 steps roughly equates to 26 miles, which is a marathon. And so we essentially walked a marathon with no training. And we probably had 2 or 3 miles left, if I remember correctly. We exited a Waitrose in Scotland, and I had a tuna sandwich. I remember this. I'm standing on the intersection with the tuna sandwich, and I just feel detached from everything. And not dizzy, but just feeling on the verge of passing out. And everything just felt very stressful and scary, and I'm pent up, and I'm like, ugh. And this was, I think, my first occurrence of hyperstimulation. And so I go to the doctor, I explain all of my symptoms. This was 3 days later. And I was like, is this lack of sleep? I've been monitoring my sleep. I know I've been drinking, I know I've been eating, but I feel like I'm eating enough. I'm not gaining weight, so maybe I'm not eating enough. I don't know, what's up? And she was just like, it's just overexhaustion. This is an event that you didn't train for. Obviously you're walking, 25,000 steps, but this is double that you attempted to do in one day without any training. And I was like, okay, fair. That makes sense. So stupid decision on our part. Anyways, So I come back, rest of the trip, gets a little better. I'm a little anxious here and there, but overall everything's fine. And for a long time, I never dealt with anything like that. And then last summer, this became an everyday occurrence, this feeling. And it just compounded and compounded and compounded until I started meditating. And I would meditate, and my brain would become less perceptive. It would become less sticky. Thoughts wouldn't bounce around. If something like scared me for a second, I'd be able to like bypass it, which I couldn't do before. And what happens is when you're meditating, you're sitting there and you're focusing in on one like thought almost, or not even a thought. You're usually focusing on what the person is saying to you. So you sit there, you have your eyes closed, you listen to what they say, and you focus in on that one, like whatever they're talking about, whatever they're saying to you. And what that does is that releases dopamine, serotonin, and GABA, which I don't know what GABA stands for. I should look that up. But GABA is the relaxation hormone. And it also releases something called BDNF, which is a protein, I believe. I don't think it's a hormone. I think it's a protein. I have protein written down in my notes, so hopefully that's right. But it releases BDNF as well. And BDNF is released in exercise. And I was reading about this, and I was like, that's really interesting, though, because when I over-exercise, I feel like my cortisol levels are going up. And so I decided to delve a little more into it. And here's what I found. Exercise will raise cortisol levels if it is chronic high-intensity exercise. What is chronic high-intensity exercise? That of a professional to semi-professional athlete. Nothing any of us are doing. I can guarantee you that. If you're going to the gym and you're lifting, that's not raising like cortisol. If you're going to, like, if you run every day, like 3 or 4 miles, 5, 6, even 10, not raising stress levels. However, acute hard exercise upon like lack of training or recovery technique will in fact raise cortisol levels. And that is what happened to me in Edinburgh. This is coined with the term overexhaustion in the fitness community. For us, for simple people like me who get it from anxiety, it is also coined with hyperstimulation. And so you pull all of that together and you realize, wait a second, this is why after exercising, I get the same type of symptoms that I would get after like chronic stress or anxiety. So, okay, abrupt ending, but I had let my friend inside. Anyways, so what we have kind of deduced from all of this, or I guess what I've deduced, is that chronic high-intensity exercise increases cortisol levels, will cause overexhaustion. Acute high-intensity exercise with unconditioned muscles, lack of training, will also raise cortisol levels. But does exercise itself raise cortisol levels? No. Actually, it does the opposite. Exercise also releases BDNF, which reduces cortisol levels, and in fact, causes your brain to not be as sticky. So it has the similar effect that meditation has. And I have noticed this in my own experience because when I used to run during my like really anxious out phase, like I'm like, oh, and everything sucks, and symptoms are raging, it's just terrible. After I would run, everything would be bad. It would be accentuated, it would be worse. And that is because your body is responding to these stressors. And so if you are chronically stressed by any outlying factors, when you exercise, your body is like, okay, I need to respond to these stressors, deal with them, take care of them, move on. And in my case, that's what was happening to me. And recently I've noticed now that my stress levels have lowered, I'll finish exercising and I'll feel a lot better and I'll bounce back right after it. Whether that's lifting, I can lift till I for a long time couldn't lift till failure. I can lift till failure again. Running, I don't feel as like, not that I'm about to pass out, but that weird like brain fog feeling, like I don't get that anymore. my legs don't get as tight, and overall everything is just better. And so what is happening is that with the combination of my meditation, which I think if you're going to do anything to respond to stress, meditation is the number one thing. But with a combination of meditation, running, other types of cardiovascular exercise, my body has kind of deduced, hey, these aren't actual threats. You know, your brain is processing these as actual threats at first, but they're not. So let's just bypass them. Let's just keep going. And over time, stress has just been reduced. So, in short, to cap this all off, exercise does not raise cortisol levels. It will only raise them if it is chronic high intensity exercise or acute intense exercise that doesn't have a lack of training, or, you know, you're just like not conditioned for it. There's that. Exercise itself and meditation release a chemical known as BDNF. Protein. I think it's a protein. BDNF causes your brain to be less sticky, less hyperactive. Overall, with the two together, you'll be much more calm. You'll have better cardiovascular health, which again will lead to better processing of stress and cortisol levels. And overall, you'll just be much healthier. So that is my video today. Exercise does not increase cortisol. You should keep doing it. Just train. Be smart. Don't overdo it. Don't walk 50,000 steps in one day. You should be good to go. Anyways, that's all I have for you guys today. Adios.